Friends, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Diner Talks with James. I'm James, and I am super pumped to be here with you all. Slide into the booth, my friends, and let's hang out tonight. What are we going to have? What you fancying tonight? Maybe some challah bread French toast. Maybe we're doing. Maybe you're going burger tonight. Maybe you're going. What's your move? You going? Are you going disco fries for my friends in Jersey? You putting a little French fries down and some cheese melted on top. You dipping it in gravy. Let's go, friends. Doesn't matter. Calories don't count after midnight. That's not true. Anyway, but I am excited to be spending time with you, my friends. I'm really pumped to be spending time also with my guest, Genevieve. She is an incredible human being coming to us from the Canary Islands. If you don't know where those are, get on Google Maps and also get on your local airline and buy a flight because they are beautiful. They're on my list of a place to visit. And I am really excited that she is coming to us from what is across the pond from where I am in the United States. So I'm really excited to introduce you to Genevieve. She is an incredible accredited life and leadership coach. She's an improv facilitator, a published co-author. She had a bunch of time in management with experience in Canada. She lived in China. She lives in Spain. She's touched them all, y'all. She's touched them all. And she transitioned to building her coaching business when she realized that so many women were going through what she had been through, being caught in a cycle of stress and anxiety that kept them stuck in their personal and professional life. Boy, that sounds like something I went through as well. She is fiercely passionate about making personal and professional development fun and coaching people to shine bright in their career and life. She is a wonderful human being, and I am honored to now call her my friend and partner in the diner, bringing her out right now. Genevieve, how are you?
Oh my God, that was amazing. I'm great. I'm so ready for the food and for the conversation.
Let's go, my friend.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Super excited. Thank you so much.
I love that you are here. I love that you're here with us. You know, it's funny. I talked about disco fries in the intro. I should have talked about poutine, being someone from French Canada like yourself.
Yeah.
And also just the fact that it's one of the greatest products on modern Earth.
It's true, especially after midnight, for sure. But when you said disco fries, I was like, huh, what's that? And then you said cheese and gravy, and I was like, huh. But I'm curious, what is the cheese in disco fries? Like, is it specific? Is it a specific type of cheese?
It's not a glorious cheese curd. It's literally just melted on top. Some diners do Swiss, some diners do American. You can also ask them to melt a specific type of cheese, but it's literally French fries with like squares of cheese like laid on top.
Yeah.
It's then baked, and then they give you gravy on the side to dip it in. So it's essentially a not quite a deconstructed poutine, but still that direction, and it's never as good as the original.
I mean, the cheese makes it very special.
Yes.
It's like we call it cheese that does squish squish because it actually makes like a sound because it's so fresh, right? Like between your teeth. So yeah, it makes it special.
Squeaky cheese curds.
I'm already learning. That's great.
Oh shoot! I'm so pumped to be here. You are here. Diner Talks with James is the name of the show, my friend. So the way that I always like to kick it off is to learn about what is a favorite late night guilty pleasure of yours. If you have a food that if you were going to go out with some friends late at night and maybe have a few extra wines and you needed something to soak it up. I don't even know if you drink wine, but either way, you know the kind of vibe I'm talking about here late at night. Do you have a late night food that you sometimes indulge in? Maybe it's also just at home.
Yeah. Well, now that you say that, the first thing that came to mind is arepas, which is yes. And I'm sorry for any Venezuelan person listening right now if I'm mixing things right now, but it's let's say like it would be a taco, but instead of being like it's a fried cornbread that they slice, and then they put an incredible amount of cheese in it. And then, whatever you like. I don't eat meat. So then here they do it with like avocado and fried banana and like a lot of cheese in it. And then you just like eat all of this. And that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's like this fried cornbread sandwich,
Yeah.
essentially.
Do you know about arepas?
It's so good. Yeah. Yeah. So I lived
Oh,
in,
okay.
yeah, I've had them before. They're delicious. There's a
Yeah.
really famous Venezuelan restaurant in Brooklyn, New York, where I used to
Mm,
live. And that's basically all they made. And that's what they were known for. And it's just an outrageous product.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. What
yeah,
about you?
yeah. I love that. I love that. I'm a pancakes guy. I love a good stack of pancakes myself. So that's typically my move. Or I'll
It,
do a grilled cheese with bacon on it.
and pancakes, like, do you do table syrup or maple syrup? Because that's the right question.
So that is a question that is asked by somebody who knows the difference. Um, is what that question is right there, my friend. That's from someone who knows what actual maple syrup is supposed to be and probably knows somebody who made it, or farmed it. So when I have the official maple syrup, I love to have that. However, most diners don't have like the actual thing. So whatever they put out is what's going on the pancakes.
I mean, that will be acceptable.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
still delicious, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being from French Canadian, so are you from Quebec or where are you from?
I'm from Quebec City.
Quebec
Yes.
City, which is
Quebec City.
the Italy of North, excuse me, is the Europe of North America, really. Right? Is this as far as like old beautiful city, so much culture, and stunning. So did you grow up speaking both French and English, or were you predominantly in Quebec City? Were you only speaking French?
Yes, only in French.
Yeah.
I started, I was learning English at school, and then in high school, I got some additional English classes. But my English really improved when I just moved abroad. And, that's really how you learn the language, right? When you're in the environment and you have to wake up and your brain has to assemble sentences that are communicating your thoughts and then people understand them. Like that's really how, in my experience in learning a few languages, that's really how you get to learn them. Because in Quebec, it's very, very French. You don't really have opportunities to practice English. In Montreal, yes, but in Quebec City, not really.
Yeah, yeah. The Quebecois.
Quebec.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. You definitely learn the language once you jump in. Right. It's kind of like that idea of did you learn to swim before or after you got in the pool? Right.
Exactly. It's great to know the basics before, but really, how do you move from conscious competent to unconscious competent? It's from, like by failing, by tripping, right?
Yeah.
Like by like just failing and making a fool of yourself over and over again until you learn. Like that's the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tell me, what did a young Genevieve growing up in Quebec City, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I love this. I love this because it can like I already see this conversation like unfolding. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be
Yeah.
an artist. Yeah, I was a loner, and I was like very crafty, like creating, comic books, and I was like performing in my living room to anybody who would care to watch. Yes, well, that got shut down pretty early on in my life. I'm going to be honest with you, and I think that's why now I love. And I know we're going to talk about improv, but that's why like improv played such a big role in my development as an adult. Is that I really repressed that side of myself because I was told that I needed to be serious a lot. Like, oh no, like this is for fun, and then you need to work and you need to do things that are valuable for society, and this is not right. I mean, all from a good intention, obviously. Like my parents were just wanted the best for me, but I've learned to be the person I needed to be instead of really listen to myself and be my bubbly and artistic self. And yeah, so I know that I went like real deep right now.
I love it. I
But
love it.
that's the answer to that.
Yeah. So you said that you were a loner,
Yeah.
and was that this is a weird question, but I'm curious to see how you answer it. Was that a loner by choice? Like, did you intentionally? Were you like, hey, I just want to be me in my art and in a corner somewhere?
Yeah.
Was that an intentional choice?
Yeah. I'm wondering what's the best answer to that. Like, no, I'm kidding. No, yes, that is. I mean, it's just I'm still a loner. Like,
Yeah.
I really love to be on my own and do my things. Of course, I love people and I love getting to know people and interacting and having great conversations. But I'm a social introvert, right? Like, I really like to. I recharge when I'm alone or when I'm a homebody very much. And so yeah, by choice. I just had a lot of ideas and I like to create things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So when did the idea shift for you? And what was that like, we're kind of moving away from your artistic self, even though it's always underneath everything, right? And everything that you do, but
Yeah.
you kind of shoved it down a little bit, and decided to make some other choices. Tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I studied business, right?
Mhm.
Which was the obvious choice where, that was opening a lot of doors. And then when I was in my early 20s, I started traveling, the classic going backpacking throughout Europe and,
Uh-huh.
getting to experience things and so on. And I really fell in love with that. Uh, exploring, meeting people from all over the world, like again using languages at that time was French and English, and yes, and then that led to business. An interesting choice would be like, oh, okay, what about I get interested in China? And in the early 2000s, China, I mean, China's been rising for a long time, but that was an interesting choice and so on. And then things happened where I got a scholarship to go and study there. And I went to study. Actually, I wanted to study like that. That was the funny story. I wanted to study economics in China. So
Yeah.
I applied to go study in English. And then I didn't get the full scholarship. And when talking with the scholarship person, they said, well, we prioritize people who want to learn the language because we do want to encourage people to learn the language so we can have people that can communicate, and do like create a bridge between two countries. And so the next year I applied to learn the language, even though I never thought I would ever learn Chinese. I was like, what? Like, but then I
Yeah.
got a full scholarship. So literally they were paying me to go and spend a year. I was 23, to go spend a year in China and learn Chinese. I was like, yay, time of my life. And I did. And I fell in love with the language. I really did. And I actually stayed 2 years. That was my first 2 years in China. But yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah. And then,
Were you
from
learning
there,
were you learning Mandarin or Cantonese or what were you learning?
Mandarin in
Mandarin,
the
okay.
in the in the north, yeah,
Yeah.
in Tianjin. Yeah, and that's fascinating. When you start, like in the beginning, it's I again, it was completely out of my imaginary that I could ever understand what those little drawing like meant, right? And then at that time, even like there were no smartphones. Like I still had a paper dictionary, and it takes so much time to look for words in Chinese in a paper dictionary. It was like 5 minutes for every character. Like it was ridiculous. But then after a few months, like I could talk to like order myself like a coffee, or I
Mhm.
could talk to people a little bit on the street. I could read some signs, and it just like opened up my world. Really, it was
Yeah.
like, wow, like I can speak to people that I could never have access to otherwise. And yeah, I set myself a goal. I was like, within 2 years I want to be able to read a book, and I went for it.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Now, here's the thing with that I've noticed with foreign travel, and you've traveled a lot more than I have, so I think that you will confirm this. Governments have problems with each other. People rarely do. Right. And so when you went to China, especially, I live in the United States, and we hear about like China's enemy number one right now,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what we're going at. That's what we're going after. But that's what we're concerned about, and everybody you hear about in the elections and et cetera, right? And so and you're able, if that's all you ever hear, you're able to start painting a picture about a person over there. Now, but that picture is frequently way off and incorrect. So I would be curious curious for you to talk a little bit about what did you learn about Chinese people? And obviously you didn't meet every Chinese person, so you will have to generalize a little bit. But as far as being over in that culture, what were some things that surprised you, that you fell in love with? Because you spent some time there.
Yeah. I actually, on and off, like between Canada and China, my studies and working, I spent almost 6 years there. And I worked with, I worked locally, like with, Chinese people. And I even dated a Chinese person. Like, what I want to say by that is that I interacted in multifaceted,
Things are getting racy here in the
yeah.
diner.
I'm sorry, that's still, we held only hands, obviously, like, but no, but what I want to say is that, like, fascinating. I love the Chinese culture. I find that I find that this is different. That's what's so interesting with cultures. Like, and I know that, like, I'm taking a tangent a little bit, but I'm gonna get back to your question. But I think that as humans, we always have a bias to think that people will understand us, like, or we see something that looks like something we're familiar with, therefore it must be something like I'm familiar with. Like, an example is, I walk into a grocery store and I see bread, therefore I think that bread will taste the same as the bread that I know, right? Yeah. And then I buy that bread and I find out that there's kidney beans in it, and that's not used to, like, that's not what I'm used to, like, that doesn't work with my sandwich that I wanted to do, right? So it's so interesting, because I find that a lot of cultural shocks is because of that. Even after I moved from China to Spain, I thought it was like, I'm guessing that I adapted to China, like adapting to Spain would be easy. That was another complete total shock,
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So this being said, what I loved about China, about Chinese culture, is that curiosity. I found that it was easy to have, because inhibitions are different. So things that are taboo for my Canadian cultured self would not be taboo for some people that I met over there, and then vice versa. So I find that it was getting into weird conversations, like, real fast. So that was funny. And yeah, that was just really interesting to.
What were some things that were not as, like, taboo over there that may have been taboo for you growing up?
Well, I'm trying to find something that is like that would not be triggering, because, like, for example, like, people would tell you, like, right away, like, telling somebody that they would have extra weight would not be something taboo.
Okay.
Where in Canada, if you would walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, you have I judge that you have extra weight," it would be something that would not be really polite, right? I mean, again, I don't want to generalize. Like, I mean, I am generalizing just by default because that's my experience, but I want to say that that's my experience. Like, it may not be the experience of everybody, and of course, China is a huge country, but that's something that that created interesting conversations where, like, somebody would say, "No, you won't fit in these pants. Like, you have way too much extra fat." And I'm like, "Thank you."
Thank you.
I was like, I feel great about myself. I see you want to sell your product. That's great. Yeah. So yeah, something like that, asking for somebody's salary would not be taboo at all. Where, again, in Canada or where I grew up, it would be very taboo. You would not talk about how much you earn or how much you make. So so things like that. Going to the toilet together for ladies was very, you just met, let's go to the toilet together. That's my experience. I'm not saying that that's everybody. In Canada would not happen that quickly, So
sure,
like
that happens all the time with drunk American women, but I don't know about in Canada. Yeah, that's fair. I love that. That's awesome. And that is fascinating to think about what is taboo in some cultures and what is taboo in others, right? We see that with sex all the time, right? Like sex means different things in different cultures and how we're going to talk about it and whatnot, right? In some ways, like I know America is considered pretty naive when it comes to sex, or pretty prude when it comes to some things around sex, whereas that's in many other countries, it's, far widely talked about, or bodies are shown off regardless of size and regardless of, what's being covered or not. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's fascinating to learn about, just what is taboo, and also why certain things are taboo in some places.
Yeah.
How did this become an issue that we all decided to get self-conscious about?
But that's the thing. I think that's what is so fascinating, because there's no big deal. Again, like if I take back here's another example. Again, with the taboo, or like, what's polite, what's impolite. Like when I was after living there for a few years, something that I learned to do was, if you eat like something with bones, people will just gently just bend over the table and just spit out the bones on the table, right? That would be normal. In fact, like some of the tablecloth were made of plastic, because that's, we just throw away the tablecloth. And then I went back to Canada. I went to a restaurant, and I didn't remember that I couldn't do that. I was eating fruits with some like pit in it, and I started, spitting them on the floor, and people were like, "What? What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh no, it's true. You don't do that here, do you?" And what I want to say is that it's no big deal. Sometimes, like as you say, talking about sex, or talking about how much you make, or or talking about different things. Like oftentimes, like we create the awkwardness around things that it doesn't really need to be there. And I think that's so fascinating with different cultures in general, that we just create those barriers. And then when you find out that, oh, you don't have that barrier at all. Right. So is that it? So what I believed all my life was not true, or was not an absolute truth. And it's just, I think that when there's such a great opportunity for curiosity, because if you're not curious, and if you're not open, and you don't laugh it off, there's a huge place to be like triggered, or say like, oh my God, I really don't like it and I need to go back, which, that's okay. Like, I mean, if somebody feels like that and they don't feel comfortable, I know that's a choice. But what I want to say is that if you do lean in, like there's such a great opportunity to learn and to have different experiences, and to get curious, and to learn from just other ways of being,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Same with languages. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. What a cool opportunity for you to have the immersive experience that you had in other cultures, right? It's one thing to go, and I mean, I encourage everybody who is at college and universities to go and study abroad if they have the opportunity, right? Yeah, if you could take even 3 months somewhere else is a eye-opening, mind-blowing experience.
Yeah.
The fact that you had 6 years altogether in China is incredible, right? I mean, you can go back there and exist. Like you said, you learn this language that to individuals on our continent, in North America, will look at those symbols and be like, what is actually going on here? In what direction? I'm supposed to read them in another direction too, right? And I'm supposed to, right? Like, it's, we always had the phrase, it's all Greek to me. And I never understood what that, like, I was like Greek is easier than what's happening in some of these other places. But still, it is incredible that you were able to have those experiences. How did some of those moments help you grow? Like you said, you grew up a little bit of a loner, artsy kid, wound up going to school for business and whatnot. But, how do those experiences change you?
Yeah. Well, I would say that I found another side of me, because when you put yourself in an environment where there's little to no benchmarks. Like again, like you buy bread and you think it's going to taste like bread. It doesn't taste like bread. You talk to people and there's different perceptions that often clash with the perceptions that you may have. And so you're not defined anymore, or, well, actually, the norms, the cultural norms that you're used to, your normal is like put in jeopardy quite quickly. And therefore you come to a point where I found that you're not defined by that anymore. Yes, of course, like there's many things that are very rooted in me, and beliefs and norms that I still follow because of how I grew up, and where I grew up. But that's normal. But I find that there's that I found a lot of freedom, because again, I'm still, okay, I'm French Canadian now. I'm sure that since we started talking, I probably said something weird in English, or I probably said a weird pronunciation or whatever. And I used to be very self-conscious of that, but now English is my second language. And I don't I find freedom in being like, look, I'm a little bit of I come from a little bit everywhere, you know what I mean? It's not like I don't feel like I'm defined so much by norms and like in a box, because I've kind of broken that. And there was a process where you're like, what's happening? But then I found a lot of freedom in actually I can do things that maybe if I would have stayed in my original environment, I would have not taken the risk to break, because there was not so many opportunities. But now when you're abroad, there's so many opportunities, and you meet people. And another thing is that you meet so many new people, and people are like a mirror of you, right? So the type of relationship that you create is a mirror of how you show up in life. And I find that, again, being a little bit of a free agent in terms of not having, being able to break the mold, it led me to understand really quickly, what type of person would I be, would I be able to have very easy conversations with, and what did I like, and so on, because I broke away from what was expected of me if I would have stayed in the mold I was in. Does that make sense?
Yes, I love that term. You're a free agent of cultural norms. That's such a cool way to put it. And I love that you got to that phrase. I don't know if you ever said it before, but you should say it again, because it just really it paints a really cool picture. And so that's awesome. That's awesome. On your website, you talk about how you go through all of these big transformations where you land your dream job and you're like, this is it. You tell your friends, I can't believe it. Life is set. I'm good. I'm set. Here we go. Gonna grow old and fat in this position and be fine for the rest of my life. And then it turns to shit. And so tell me a little bit about that. Walk me through one of those experiences and kind of what happened upon, getting what you thought was the dream job and then finding out it wasn't.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love this. I love that, how you express that. Yes. Well, yeah, I really did find my dream job, and I was I've always been very driven, and I was like, I'm going to give it all I got, and I really did, and I, what I wrote on my website, I really remember waking up one day, and I was in another city for interviews, and I was told that I got the job, and I woke up and I texted a friend saying, starting tomorrow, I'm going to wake up in the morning knowing that I'm going to work to change the world. I really wanted to have a positive impact. That was really important for me to spend my time and my personal resources in doing that. And I gave it all I got, and it was a startup type of business. So, it's there's definitions of what you do, but also it means that you kind of do everything at the same time. There was, and within 9 months, I couldn't get out of bed anymore, and I was, I wouldn't see the point. I was completely burned out. Let's put it like this. And at that time, I said, well, okay, the environment, just, objectively, someone could say the environment was not optimal in which I was working. And I was like, well, I was lucky enough to be offered a new job with people that I loved, an environment that was very positive, and a job that I loved. And I was like, great. So problem solved, right? I thought that I would get like old and well fed in the other job, but no, it's okay. I'm gonna it's gonna be the other job, and problem solved. And then I rebuilt my self-esteem and myself through that job. And I started I started as a manager, an event a coordinator, and then I grew as the head of department in events. And within 2 years I was again burnt out. And then I was like, well, hold on, like, I don't have a toxic environment like I had before. And yet some of I forgot to say, but yeah, like some of the symptoms of the anxiety from the first experiences that I had started an eating disorder. And like in my late 20s, like that, it was really like a result of a way for me to gain control. And these symptoms were not going away, and they were coming back stronger. And I was really confused because I thought, well, yeah, like now it's not the environment, so maybe, just maybe, it's overall, maybe it's I need to go away from China, right?
Yeah.
So one day, I'll skip the drama, but I really snapped. I was like, I need to get out of here. And at the time, my boyfriend, now husband, was in Spain, and I came to visit him. And well, actually, I came to visit him with all my stuff and no ticket back. But yeah, so
just a quick visit.
Yeah, it's a quick visit. I arrived on Christmas Day. Surprise! I live here now. I know, I'm kidding.
Brought the cat.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, long story short, quickly I found another job here, and I was like, great. Now it's a new environment, like completely new environment, different field. And I started from scratch, and I was like super excited to make it my, that's going to be the experience when I'm going to really make it, and so on. And within a year and a half, I was coming back home crying, and I was like, okay, that's ridiculous. Like what's going on? In the beginning is because like there was, toxicity in the environment. After that is because I was working too much. I was, always the culture. And now like I changed, not only did I change company, role, people I work with, their background is not even the same professionally or culturally. I changed the language. I changed the continent. I changed everything I could possibly change. And the same things are happening, except for the way that I think, right? Except for how I deal with situations. And that really like hit me in the face, like if I was run over by a truck. Like it really like was a moment where I was like, oh, wow, okay. Like everything pointed at me. I was the only common denominator into all of the experiences that I have had. And that's how I started my personal development journey. When some of it came back when I was an entrepreneur, because again, you just work and you do whatever, you do whatever you can to make it work. And some of the exhaustion came back, and I was like, yeah, it was not even about having a job, right? Like it's really about, again, like continuing with that, with refining the mindset and letting go of the limits and the things that were just coming in my way were holding me back from just really like living my life and enjoying what I was doing without all that stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
What
a journey. I didn't even buy a ticket to that ride, friend. Didn't even buy a ticket to that ride. Thanks for letting me give me free admittance on that. That is quite the roller coaster. And so I want to come back to a few things that you said along the journey, because I think a lot of people reach that breaking point where they just like, this isn't for me and whatnot. You can tell this is unhealthy or this is whatnot. And a lot of people will say, well, that means I'm the problem. right?
Mm-hmm.
It must be something that I'm doing. I'm wrong,
Yeah.
and whatnot. You had the courage to change and realize that maybe it is the work environment also. But you mentioned this idea of, I wanted control, and I wanted to, I wanted to, be in a less toxic place. And some of the places that you were describing were a little bit toxic. And when do you know? When do you know? And maybe you talk about this with some of your clients also, but when do you know it's time to make a decision to leave? Because I think some people make the decision a little quickly to leave when they can make the decision to advocate for themselves in the moment too, right? Like, we don't
Yeah.
need to, this sucks, I'm out, right? Like, that can't be how it always is. And so, for you, how did you find that balance of, like, what, the enough is enough, I deserve better, or enough is enough, I'm going to walk into my boss's office and say something needs to change, right? Like, that moment of self-advocacy, whether it's leaving or going into an office and saying that I need X, Y, or Z, otherwise I'm leaving. Right. Like, how do you reach that point, and where does that come from?
Yes. Yes. Well, first of all, I completely agree with what you just said in terms of it's not always others, it's not always you. Like, there's not a one size fits all, and it can always be like, I'm just going to leave, and also it's not always like, oh, I'm just the problem. Like, it really depends. And but what I find that really helps is first of all, get to know yourself. Like, that's part of my message. Wow, I said that right. Weird. My message. Get to know yourself. Get to know your thoughts. Get to know what you're telling yourself. Is it serving you? Is it not serving you? So that's a first, like, and I say this less, it's an afternoon activity. No, like, it's a lifelong journey, get to know yourself. But it's really important, because then you can have more clarity in terms of, okay, am I creating some of those patterns? Is it, what do I tolerate? What do I not tolerate? And so on. So that can provide a lot of clarity. And then, like, knowing your values, like, what is important to you, knowing where you're going. Right. So so that it helps with, it's a basis for decision making. Like, is it, like, for me, is it about the money? Is it about achievement? Is it about providing value to people? And then really knowing like, am I willing to tolerate? What am I not willing to tolerate? What is most important? If health or family, time with your family is your highest value, and then, like, work is not in your top 5 value, and so on. Well, that's when you're really aware of that becomes, and your work is becoming a barrier to your health or your time you spend with your family, that becomes an easier of a decision. But really, again, knowing yourself, knowing what you want to accomplish, and what is really important to you, what are your values, like, start there. Because when you do that work, a lot of things around you become a lot clearer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Yeah, it's easy to see things around you and be like, well, this needs to change and this needs to change, right? It's a lot harder to look in the mirror and be like, well, what actually matters, or what maybe needs to change inside here too, right? Like, it's not just everybody else. Like, work-life balance is not always work's fault. It's also, what are you doing with the time outside of work? How are you bringing yourself joy outside of work so that you show up to work in a different attitude, as opposed to, my life's miserable outside of work and now I'm going to go back to dumpy work. It's why they call it work, not play. Right. And so, yeah, I think that is a really wise assessment on what to do. So for you specifically, when you were in some of those moments, what did you learn, during each of those big transitions? How did you become closer and closer to being able to name your values? And what were some of those values that you realized mattered to you?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I wasn't aware. Like, I wasn't really aware until I really started my personal development journey. Like, that's why I think that I was, one factor, and then, oh no, that's not it. Well, that's going to be something else. And but really, again, when I started identifying that my thoughts were not necessarily the truth, for sure, that was a big moment. And then what was the values that were really important to me? Again, creating impact, loving, like having fun in my life, expressing myself was really, really important. And love is really important to me. Like love in terms of, yes, in a romantic relationship, but also just loving, like being surrounded by people that are very supportive, that I can support, and really that interaction and exchange with people is very important to me. And creativity is extremely important to me too, in terms of being able to create, express myself, have a voice. And I think that's what also brought me to entrepreneurship, because that was a no-brainer for me. And another thing is that I also, because I love the international context, but also I have a family in Canada, I really wanted to create something online so that I could be able to travel, because also family is very important. I know that I just like put everything like, this is important, but I felt like I named a lot of things. But I think that, my highest value right now is really, I would say, is creating joy, like having joy in my life, and helping people, like, just co-creation of joy.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's what improv is about.
That is what improv is about, my friend. Exactly. Yeah, we're all in this together. We have no idea what we're going to create, but we're going to do it together. And we're going to have a damn good time doing it. Give us one suggestion and we'll jump right on that for you.
Yeah. And we'll make it imperfect. Like, I love when you talk about this, because you talk about this so well, like the imperfection and finding the beauty in that, because this is just life. Like, imperfection is life. No, life isn't perfect. That's what I mean. And that's what I love about improv. I heard Tina Fey say once, like, it's improv. It's gonna suck. Like, that's okay. Like, it's not gonna be a perfect story, and that's okay. Like, sometimes it's gonna be great, sometimes it's not, and we're good with that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how. I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of stories about that, but I'm curious to hear what you think of that. I know you have a lot to say around the imperfection, and I just love talking about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think we as humans, as we were talking about before we got on here, I think we as humans can't learn things from people who are perfect. We can only learn things from people who are imperfect. And so that's why I really respect you for sharing some of these imperfections and some of these, moments that, you don't necessarily put on LinkedIn. You don't put on the resume. You don't put on whatever, right? But you embrace them. And I think that's really awesome. And diving into our imperfections is cool, because that's where our quirks are. Those are the things that allow us to stand in our own independent humanity, and realize that we are different, but different's okay, right? We don't have to be an excellent sheep. We can just be ourselves and show up every day. And there's a good chance that we're enough. So what if we just lived life like we were? But yeah.
Oh my God! Tweet that right now. That's wonderful. Yes, there's a good chance that we're enough. So may as well live life like
probability,
like that.
Genevieve.
Yeah.
The thing that an interesting through line between a lot of your pitfalls that you fell into in each one of those jobs was also this idea of control and not having control. Right. And you talked about control as in, potentially your eating disorder, you named it as being a control issue, which eating disorders frequently are. They are around the idea of having control. And so I think it is pretty hysterical that you decided to go into something like entrepreneurship, where you definitely have control, but there's a whole lot of let's see, right? With improv, yes, with entrepreneurship, because yes, you have an idea, yes, you're your own boss, but there's also a lot of this high anxiety in a lot of that as well. And there's times where you just need to try something. You need to create a piece of marketing and be like, let's see if this draws customers. Let's offer this for free and see if that sparks more insight or intrigue. Let's do it, right? Like there's a lot in entrepreneurship that, yes, it is a great field for people who love control. It is also a horrible field for people who love control. It's kind of like what your relationship with control is. Because some people who love control really appreciate that a paycheck's going to show up every 2 weeks, pretty much regardless of what they're going to do, right? And that's control of safety and security. But we all can have, we want to have control over different things as humans. And so I'd be curious to hear about your relationship with control. I also love the fact that you do improv despite that you love control, right? Right. Those kinds of things it's funny. So, but control is something that we all have different relationships with. And I'm curious what your relationship with control is.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. I'm just writing notes, kind of like, oh my God, there's so much to that relationship. First of all, I want to say that I do talk about all of my flaws on LinkedIn.
Yes, you do.
That's something I love to talk about. Talk about your flaws. People relate to that. No, well, okay, here's the thing. You know that I said that I felt like my artistic side, I just pushed it down because I thought that, that was not good enough. And I didn't really have the right to explore that because that was not serious and so on. I think that that's when I really created that other side of me that needed to be in control, right? I needed to control, like I needed to, not be too loud. I needed to, because I'm a pretty loud person and I like to, I have a lot of bubbles inside and sometimes I get over enthusiastic and that's just who I am. Like some people like that. Some people like it less. Like I'm that's just what it is. But, like I needed to be like, in corporate, like you need to be, the environment gives you hints that you need to be a certain way. And so I think that, when you said relationship with control, I think that a lot of the stress and the anxiety, it came from controlling myself, right? Trying to control myself in terms of like, oh no, I probably look like a fool. Then I need to not do that again. Or, this was not okay, or I laughed too loud in a meeting, or I shouldn't have talked, or whatever, and let's not do that again, right? So I started like really like that relationship of really like trying to control myself, because that it's so interesting because when you talk about entrepreneurship, like a lot of the things you cannot control is outside of you. But actually now my perception is like, actually the only thing you have control is you, and the more you work to have control on your story, the story you tell yourself, the more you work to have control on your thoughts, or at least manage your thoughts and, become good buddy with them so that you can see which one serve you and which one don't serve you. Then you can have a lot more control on yourself and so on. But at that time, that was really like how I would have control is to beat myself up and punish myself and really gain control of like, that little fire and bubbles that I had inside of me, like it couldn't come out because that was not appropriate. Yeah. So and seriously, like I had such a journey through play of like giving myself permission to one day, like, I live on a small island. There was an opportunity for a theater. I'm not a trained actress at all, but I was like, why not? Let's just try it. And then I got into theater, and then I got a nudge of like improv sounds really cool. Like, what about I do that? But then again, I live on a small island. There was not really opportunities, especially not in English. And I wanted to, start in English at least. And so therefore I started a group, like I started a meetup, and then I started, long story short, started creating an improv workshop every week. And now it's been years, but just the improv has such an ability to, like, when you try to control, that's when you fail. Like when you are in the moment and when you really like lean into the yes and when you say yes to ridiculous things that you really don't want to say yes to, but you're like, oh my God, like, let's just do it, right? Like, and you just play with it. Like, again, I'm saying that you really don't want to say yes to because you're trying to control the situation, right? that's when the most wonderful things happen. And by repetition, by practicing it made me so much more comfortable with not having so much controlling myself. I can always control like where I'm going, right? I can always control where what approach, how I'm going to co-create with the situation, right? I need to accept, yes, and add to it, how am I going to co-create with what is in front of me, whether it's a line or whether it's a situation, it's in a conversation. So I can always control that, but I cannot control what the outcome would be. I can only contribute. And I think that like by practicing and by doing that in a safe space of really in with improv, it really allowed me to see like how can I actually apply that to real life. Yeah. And of course, it's not everything is always like, rainbows, unicorns and laughable and stuff like that. But I think that when you apply those skills in real life, then you become a lot more comfortable with not having control, but yet again, you always have that control of yourself when you learn how to manage yourself, obviously. I went on a tangent there, but I hope that answered a little bit.
I love me a good tangent, fam, so don't worry about it. I can't hold people accountable to things that I do. So, no, I think that was beautiful. Control is such a fascinating thing. We all have a different relationship with it, and there are some people that, right, like this. We sometimes live in a culture right now where the phrase, and pardon my French here, but like zero fucks happens. It's ironic because you speak French, that's not actually French, but anyway, that's a phrase here. But anyway,
I get it.
It's different when you actually talk to somebody who it's like, that's not French, James.
Yeah.
But either way, you still get what I'm saying. But like this phrase of like giving zero fucks, right? Like that's impossible. And people who have no worries and no cares whatsoever. I mean, that sounds like what an island paradise might be, right? That's what they try to sell you when you book vacation packages in Jamaica and places like that. It's like, come down here and there's no worries. It's like that. That's not a realistic life to live, because at the end of the day, I need you to care about something. Right. And you do care about something. It's figuring out what you care about. And most importantly, what I love what you said is that figuring out what can you control, because so much time is spent on worrying about things that we cannot control that it doesn't help. And so we just sit there and spiral. And that's why, a word that comes up in your bio, and a word that certainly comes up in my bio as well, as anxiety. And that's where anxiety happens. Anxiety happens by us worrying so much about things that are probably outside of our control. Why don't we spend time worrying about things that we can control? And that's a tough place to get to, because it's a hell of a lot easier to worry about stuff that you can't do anything about. Because if you worry about something you can do something about, that means you actually just need to go ahead and do something about it. But, turns out change and work are kind of like the same word. And so people don't love that.
Yeah.
And the work that you do is very inspiring. I do a little bit of coaching myself, where you work on getting individuals to own where they currently are, and also own where they want to go, and then dissect the difference between the two by holding them accountable to making some different choices, or writing their story in a different way, or the patterns in which they speak about themselves or about opportunities that might be in front of them, right? This is what great coaches do. They hold you accountable to the life you say you want to live. And that is, first off, it's beautiful, the work that you do. And it's also really hard to get someone to change, because people have to want it for themselves. So what have you noticed in some of the work that you've done around ways to spark change in others, and also spark change in yourself?
Yeah. First of all, I agree with you. I think that, first, you cannot change somebody who doesn't want to, right? Like, I mean, that's why the coaching relationship is so much of a partnership, because it's something that, we're buddies here. Like, we're co-creating something together. Like, we're walking, together. And yes, I'm going to be here. You're also going to be here. And therefore I cannot do the work for you, So that's for sure. And I really, when people have more clarity, that's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
When people see things clearly for themselves, then the way forward becomes a lot easier, right? So I work with a mindset system that is called Eliminate Your Limits. That was created by Dr. Brian Grasso and Carrie Campbell. Shout out. And that's a mindset system that has specific pillars and specific exercises that we do so that one can really learn to understand themselves and really see it for themselves. Like, again, it's not like I see this in you. Is that true? It's more like I'm seeing this for myself. I'm seeing my patterns that become so obvious to me that it's so obvious that, hold on a second, I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking of like how busy I am and how annoyed I am at my coworkers, and I want to live a life of fun and peace. Like, hold on a second, like here's that there's a disconnect there. It doesn't work, right? So when you see that for yourself, like when you gain that awareness, then after that, exactly as you said, it's about owning that, because none of what you think of what you do is necessarily wrong. Is all about, is it serving where you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
So, or is it not serving where you want to go? And that, like, as you said, it takes courage to own all of that. It's like, you know what? I was not on the right track and I just need to own it. Like when I discover what I can control, it also means like, okay, like then I need to take responsibility for it. And sometimes it's also to recognize that I was doing the best that I could with what I had, but that was not really, serving me. That was not really, like, I'm doing air quotes now because, that was not good for me. Let's put it like this, right? Like, it's kind of like I do have again, it's not a fault, but again, like just realizing that, like, just to like, look, it's okay. I didn't know better. And now I see things clearly and I can move forward. And I think that when we have that awareness and the ownership, because the awareness like alone, it's not enough, but the awareness and the ownership from there, taking action is a no-brainer. And I find that, again, to answer your question, like it when we, like, these are the first steps, and then from there it's like, okay, well then what action? And then, like, there's a variety of action. Like, the options is not a problem, right? And it's really about being accountable. Exactly. And then when you just keep doing that, like gaining awareness, because this is also like there's so many layers to the onion, right? So it's not a one-time thing, but taking awareness. Oh, okay, I noticed that. Oh, okay, well, I own it all. Yes, right, I accept it, and here's what I'm going to do about it, right? And when you create, and not create, but when you own that process, then you're just continuously just like leveraging your strength and your not so strength, so that you can move forward and take action.
Y'all, I hope y'all were listening, because that was beautiful. That was awesome. So well said, Jen. I love it. And yeah, I agree. I agree. That power, the power of ownership, and realizing that you are the one who grants yourself permission to have ownership.
Yes.
Right? No one gives you that. No one comes over and taps you on the head and be like, psst, you have ownership over the decisions in your life and what you do with it. Right? Like that's just something we need to recognize for ourselves. And a lot of times people play because of extraneous circumstances that sometimes earn them the right to play it, but a lot of times people play victim, right? And people have been through some tough things and have earned the right to play victim in their lives. And so I'm not at all trying to say that people who play the victim are a problem, but it is important for us to recognize that at some point in time in our lives, we have to be the ones who take ownership for whatever it is, right? Whether it's being a good parent, being a good friend, being an entrepreneur, being a good human being, following our dreams, doing things that matter to us, whatever, right? There's a whole bunch of things where at some point in time, we slowly recognize and we take ownership at each of those pieces one at a time, as we recognize, oh, wait, I am in control. And I'm not just sitting here waiting for somebody. And so, but that's a hell of a process to get to. The self-esteem is there. on like the devil on your shoulder, and be like, nah, you're not good enough, bro. Nah, bro. Nah, you can't do. Nah, you're not smart enough. You're not hot enough. You're not rich enough. You're not successful enough. You're not whatever enough, right? You got somebody tapping you on one side, that's punching the optimist inside your brain in the face, and it's not helping. So here's my last question for you, friend. Is first off, and thank you for kicking it with me. But I'm wondering, knowing what you do and how you do it, who do you love to work with? Who are like, what kind of individual are you seeking out, and just in general, like who? I'd be curious to hear your answer also to like who should seek coaching. Right. Because coaching is different than counseling, and people who need counseling don't necessarily need coaching, and people who need coaching don't necessarily need counseling. I think at many points in our lives, I think we need both, but they're not always at the same time. But, I'm wondering for you, as you think about it, like what kind of clients do you typically work with? Or, do you hope reach out to you and whatnot, and who needs coaching?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I think that I feel like a few years ago would have said an answer, and now I would say something else, because I find that there's a variety, but I would say that here's the common denominator. First of all, I mean, just like if we're looking for demographics, I work with professionals. So I work with people that are really driven and that want more, right? They want to perform better. They want to reach more success. Like, I think that generally people who seek coaching is that. I find that you need to be ready, as exactly as you said, like you need to be ready to be honest with yourself, like stupid honest with yourself. You need to be ready to like found like the mud pool and just go and swim in it, and because it's necessary. And the coach, as a coach, you go in the pool with the people. You're like, let's get dirty, but you as a coach, you cannot go in this pool alone, because then you're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna that's not how it works. So I would say that, I find, people who think like, oh, I've lost myself, or I feel like, I thought I would be happy, but I'm not, that's definitely like part of my story. And I find that there's a lot of people that follow the path that thought that they would love, and finally they're like, hold on a second, that's actually not, I don't feel fulfilled, or I feel like I'm just like filling my calendar with a lot of things, and I'm just always busy. I'm not actually enjoying my life. And that again, you're ready for it, ready to, okay, I'm gonna do what it takes. I'm gonna go and see those dark sides and the great sides as well. And I'm ready to walk my talk and to do it. I would say, just seriously do yourself a favor and go through that journey, because this is an amazing journey to take, and this is so empowering. And so ironically, like jumping in the mud and being willing to say like, oh wow, like I didn't know better, is the most empowering thing, because then and then you can, we're always in the dark at some point, and we're always learning all the time, but this is how you can move forward, and this is how you actually become the best version of yourself, one day at a time. So yeah, that's it. That answer came from my heart. I don't know if that was really clear, but that definitely was what I think.
Genevieve, I loved that answer. And I love it because you're right. If you want to, you got to be willing to get in the pool. You got to be willing to get into the mud. And if you're not willing to get into the mud, then it may not be time for you. But at the same time, you need to think about, why don't I want to get in the mud? What am I running from? And that is probably the time where counseling is helpful. I mean, let's get back into one of the things that are stopping me. What has happened in my past that maybe I haven't worked through, that I still hold on to, that stop me from moving forward. Coaches are really great at taking you from where you are to where you want to go. And counseling is really helpful for you to understand better who you are and the stories you've been writing about yourself, and recognizing that those aren't always the kindest. And so I love this, and I'm so glad that we got to hang out together today, my friend. Can you tell people where they can connect with your wonderful self?
Yes. Well, I love to hang out on LinkedIn a lot. So, I know there's a lot of E's in my name, and you just like copy paste and look for it in LinkedIn and reach out. I really love to interact with professionals over there, and also if you want to learn more, also of course you can jump on my website at Netola Coaching. I know that you put it earlier, James. And yes, come and say hi. I'm also starting effectiveness habits masterclass soon. That is free. It's absolutely free, and I just really want to help people put all of the practices that I've helped my clients with and really like communicate like how easy, simple practices and questioning with yourself can help you create more effective habits, and also including the yes and in your life, which is a practice I talk a lot about. So come on my LinkedIn and we'll talk about that, and you can jump on a masterclass when you want.
Yes, I love it. Connect with her on LinkedIn, Netola Coaching, Nettola coaching.com. Make sure that you check out all of those places. Genevieve, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a blast. I'm sweating. It's so warm in here. I'm sweating. I had a little like fan, but the battery is off. But I just had so much fun. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for listening to my blab. That was great.
I loved it. I loved being with you, friend. Thank you so much. Y'all, that was my time with Genevieve. She is an incredible human being, and I can't wait to fly over to the Canary Islands, hang out with her, do improv, bring her some poutine from North America, ideally Canada, while we eat arepas. I don't care. We're going to stay up late. We're going to have a conversation. It's going to get deep, and I can't wait. I hope that I get to meet her in person one day. And so thank you, my friends. I'd love to meet you in person one day. One too. Why not? Let's hang out. Let's be friends. Let's go to a diner. Why not? But until the next time we do get to hang out, my friends, please think about what Genevieve was talking about, where doing that soul work of what matters to me. Why does it matter to me? And what are my values? And is where I'm currently in life serving my values and building me to a place that I am excited about and proud about? And if it's not, let's start figuring out how we can start to try to turn the ship. It's not going to happen immediately, but it is worth the time because you are worth time, my friends. I appreciate you spending time with me. Until the next time we get to hang out, y'all, keep punching small talk in the face by asking better questions. You all take care.